Alrighty, so the math dealer here, and today we're going to learn how to solve a quadratic equation by completing the square. I know, super excited. I'm so excited. My pulse is racing. Okay, so for starters, let's remember what a quadratic equation is. All right, so hopefully by now you've already watched my video on how to solve a quadratic by factoring. Okay, now what we're going to do is solve a quadratic by completing the square. So we're going to make this thing into a perfect square trinomial. That is our objective. All right, first step, make sure that the coefficient of your squared term is 1. It is. Remember, the coefficient of your squared term, that's just the number in front of your x squared, so we got that going for us. Next step, we're going to move the constant to the other side and leave a little space, not a big space. Don't go crazy about a space, just a little space. That's all I'm asking, okay? Sometimes people leave a big old space and you're like, dude, that's a big space. What are you doing with that big space? No, little space. Okay. Now, next step, take half of the coefficient of your linear term, meaning half of b. All right, so we're going to take half of b. Remember, b is in front of the x. All right, so let's take half of the b. All right. Well, half of 3, we all know and love to be. Wait for it. Yep, 3/2. But then I need to square it, and that's this key one in green. I'm going to have to square it and add it to both sides. So I am going to have to do some math here, right? I'm going to have to square 3/2 and add it to both sides. Now, fun fact. You know how to factor that left-hand side. You created a perfect square trinomial. You just did that. So the way this factors, it's x plus 3/2 quantity squared. Just remember, and I tell my students this all the time, whatever that half term was when you took half of b, that's really what's going inside this parentheses. And it's all because what you just did is you created a perfect square trinomial. Like if I multiplied that out, I would actually get x squared plus 3x plus 9/4. Well, if I'm going to factor it, it's going to factor to be x plus 3/2 squared. Do you have to remember all that? No. Just know those steps and you're going to be golden. Simply golden. Okay, so now equals, let's not forget about this side. Over here I have a 5, I plus 9/4, right? And of course, 5 plus 9/4 is 29/4. Again, don't forget, 5 over 1 plus 9 over 4. I could call this guy 20 over 4, because that's the same thing as 5, and I get 29/4. All right, so my next step, okay, is now I'm going to take the square root of both sides, all right? And I tell my class this all the time, all right? You're going to walk in with a square root. Well, if you walk in with a square root, you also better be walking in with a plus and minus. So I'm going to be taking the square root of 29 and then the square root of 4, which, oh, by the way, is 2. All right, so pause this if you have to, right? Go ahead, that's fine. Okay, well, welcome back. Right now, what I'm going to do is solve for x. I'm going to slide my 3/2 to the other side by subtracting. All right, if you're watching this video, I know you know how to solve a simple equation, right? So I end up getting -3 plus or minus the square root of 29 over 2. Okay, so just like I said, you could write it with all of it over 2, or you can just write it separated by the 2's. Nothing wrong with either one. Okay, so, all right, go ahead and pause the video if you have to, all right? Yep, because I'm getting ready to erase it because now we're going to look at the next one. What happens when A is not 1, right? What do we do when A is not 1? Okay, so here we go. Well, if A is not 1, then I have to divide all the terms by A, all right? So we're looking at this equation right here. Okay, this second equation I already have nicely written up here. All right, so I have 2x squared minus 7x minus 6 is equal to 0. So like I said, if A is not 1, then I have to divide everything by the A. So that's going to leave me with x squared minus 7/2 x minus 3 equals 0. Please don't forget, 0 divided by 2, oh, by the way, is 0. Okay, good. All right, now, next step. That's in blue here, okay? Move the constant to the other side. So I have to move my 3 to the other side. So I get x squared minus 7/2 x equals 3. Now notice I didn't leave a big space, just a little space, right? Don't go crazy on the space, I'm telling you, especially if you're one of my students. Don't go crazy on that space. Okay. Now, take half of the coefficient of b. So note, my b is negative 7/2. So I am taking 1/2 of negative 7 over 2, which is negative 7 over 4. This is not rocket science, okay? Although rocket scientists have been known to use fractions, I'm just saying. All right? Now remember, you got to square it and add it to both sides. Now the last time when I squared it, I just left it in the parentheses squared and squared it later. This time I'm just going to go ahead and square it all at one time. So negative 7 squared is 49, 4 squared is 16. Okay, so here we go. This is very, very exciting, right? Now, you know how to factor this because you just created the perfect square trinomial. That is what you just did. So when I factor it, I get negative 7/4 goes in because remember what we said. Whatever that term is, that's what's coming in. And then, of course, don't forget, please don't forget, you do need to add those over there. All right. Well, if I took 3 plus 49 over 16, okay, remember 3, it's like saying 48 over 16, because 16 times 3 is 48, right? You know how to add fractions, I hope. So I get 48 plus 49, which lo and behold is, yep, 97. Okay, I should have that in blue. Let me keep my color coding. I know I'm so crazy fun. All right, now, last step. Take the square root of both sides. Don't be rude. And what I mean by that is when you bring in a square root, you must also bring in a plus and a minus. Please, please, please take note of that. Fun fact, square root of 97 over 16 becomes the square root of 97 over 4. Because if I can distribute the square root to the numerator as well as the denominator. And then, of course, just solve for the x by sliding your 7/4 to the other side and calling it a day, right? How about that? Okay, so those are your answers right there. There are two answers. A quadratic equation will yield two answers. Okay, it definitely is going to yield two answers. All right, so like I said, pause the video. I really hope you've written down these steps over here because let me tell you, these steps are money, right? These are huge. Okay, you don't get those kind of steps just in a textbook. No, no, no. You got to watch The Math Dealer to get a step like that. I know, super excited. All right, let me bring this guy over here because they ran out of room over there. All right, last but not least, check to make sure A is 1. Oh, wait, A is not 1, right? Here, let me slide this board down a little bit so you can see, right? A is definitely not 1. So I'm going to divide everything by the 3. Everybody gets divided by 3. So that leaves me with x squared minus, actually, minus 1/3 x minus 1/3 equals 0. Okay, because negative x over 3 is negative 1/3 x. I hope that doesn't trick too many people. All right, here we go. Move the constant to the other side, right? So that leaves me with x squared minus 1/3 x. Yep, leave a little space, not a big space. Don't go crazy on that space, because if you go crazy on the space, then all of a sudden you think, oh, I got to leave a big space. Got to fill the big space. No, stop, right? Good. So now I'm going to take half of negative 1/3. Gives me negative 1/6, right? Now I'm going to bring that negative 1/6 in, but remember, I'm going to square it. Oh, this should be in green. Negative 1/6 squared, and I'm going to add it to both sides. When I square a negative 1 over 6, I get 1 over 36. I hope that's not too crazy for you, right? Now, beautiful fact, you know how to factor this because, oh, wait for it, you created it, right? Good times, good times. All right, now, come on over here. I have 1/3 plus 1 over 36, right? When I add those two together, just think about this as being 12 over 36, right? Because 1/3 is 12 over 36. And that's going to get me 13 over 36. Here's a fun fact, right? Take the square root of both sides. That's this last step. Maybe I need to slide my board up a little bit. Yep. Right? Take the square root of both sides. And remember, when I take the square root of both sides, I must, yes, bring in a plus or minus. Otherwise, that's just, yep, rude. You do not want to be rude. We are better than that. Okay. All right. So that is how you solve a quadratic equation by completing the square. Okay. So like I said, make sure you've jotted down these notes over here because these steps, that's your money right there. All right. Well, this is the Math Dealer signing out. I hope you guys have a fabulous day.